Welcome to the Factoring Simple Trinomials lesson. So to start off today, I'm just going to show you something you've been doing already where if you take a couple binomials like this, multiply it out, what do you get? And then we're going to analyze to see what the middle term b value and the last term c value look like, okay? See if there's some sort of conclusion we can make. So for the first one here, so if I use FOIL, we know that we can do the first calculations. So these two together, so that's x squared. Okay, and then we have outer, which is the next two. That's 2x. The inner, that's 1x. And the last two, that's 1 times 2, that's 2. Okay, so when we clean that up, we get x squared plus 3x, because these two are like terms, okay, and plus 3. Okay, so we're going to go through and calculate all those out. So if you need the practice, go and do that. I'm just going to write them all in though, okay? Finished, you can use our model or you can use the FOIL method. I finished calculating all of these out. And now I have these, okay? So now what I want you to do in the next columns is I want you to look at B, which is the middle term that has the x, and I want you to write it in this column here, and then carry the negative with it too if there's a negative, okay? And same with C, write the last term, the one without an x, and again, if it has a negative sign, write it down, okay? So just do that right now. Okay, so I went through, I didn't, write the x in for the b term, I just wrote the number that was in front of the x, and then see here. Okay, so what we're supposed to do from this investigation is we're supposed to kind of look at what we started with. Okay, so for example, I'll use this one because there's no arrows on it. So we have x plus 3 and x plus 4, so what are we noticing about how those are related to the b value, okay, and the c value? So right away you're looking and going, okay, well, what are 3 and 4? How are they related to 7? Okay, so if you think, okay, well, if I add them, I would get 7, right? And if you multiply 3 and 4, what would you get? You would get 12. So is that what we're seeing with everything else? So let's look at the first one, 1 and 2. If I add them, I get 3. 1 times 2, I get 2. Okay, here's the next one. 3 plus 5 makes 8. 3 times 5 makes 15. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to see a pattern here that for the middle one, if you just add the two numbers out here, you get the middle one. And for the last number, if you multiply the two numbers, you get the last term. So, and then the rest of them, like the first one, is always x squared, x squared, x squared, okay? So, yeah, so let's just keep going here. So 2, positive 2, positive 2, if you add them, you get 4. But if you multiply 2 and 2, you get 4 as well. All right, and then we go down here. So now we got some negatives in here. So we have a negative 3 and negative 3. So those guys are on the same team. If I add them together, I get negative 4. And if I go negative 3 times negative 3, right? Negative times negative makes a positive 3. And then we keep going here. We've got a negative and a positive now. So if I take negative 3 and I add to a positive 5, I get positive 2. If I take negative 3 and multiply it to a positive 5, I get negative 15. Okay, and so forth. So negative negative makes negative 4, but if I take a negative times a negative, I get positive 4. All right, so we have some sort of pattern here that for us to get to from here to here, and then today what we're doing is we're going backwards. We're trying to go back to here, okay? So we're going to try to use the B and C relationship here to go back to the two binomials, okay? All right, so again, we're doing like reverse FOIL today. All right, so you're just going to write down what you noticed here. Okay, so I'm just using an example here, the first one, I guess, that we had. What we're noticing here is that when we have these two binomials to get to here, we're noticing, how to FOIL and get to here, or use area model and get to here. We're noticing that the middle number is just the sum of these two, and the last number is the product. Okay, if you multiply them together, the product of those two. Okay, so that's what's going to help us go from this form back to this form today. Okay, so So basically when you have a question like this, you're trying to think of, okay, what would add to the middle number but would multiply to that last number? Okay, so that's what we're doing today. And again, I called this lesson the simple trinomial lesson because a right here is equal to 1. So it's always when it's x squared only. X squared, x squared, x squared, okay? We're going to look at tomorrow or the next day when there's a number in front, what do we do? But otherwise, in this course, we're just keeping it to simple trinomials. There are some more complex ones out there where you have to use different methods, but for now, we're just learning the simple ones here, okay? All right, so let's move on to the first example here. Okay, so we have, you have to factor, okay? So when I would tell you to expand these and you would go this way, okay? So now we're doing the opposite and it's called factor. So that's what you guys have to do today. And we're gonna build our product sum table. So again, what you're gonna do is the one in the middle here is the sum. And the one out here is the product. Okay, so I can call it, I don't know, I can call it plus and multiply if that's easier, okay? All right, so you're going to set up a table. So you're going to say the sum, or you can call it the plus, adding them up, of 7, positive 7. And you need to multiply the product of 12. Okay, so we can just do plus and multiplication, I guess. All right, so you are trying to brainstorm right now. What are all the numbers that will multiply up to the 12 first, okay? So think of this first. Do the product first. So what numbers multiply to make 12? So if you, again, a little bit tired, you can't think of all the numbers, this is what I would, like I have a factoring table down here. So we have to find the product of 12. So go and scan through. So like this top part here is kind of the number, and then underneath it are the factors. Okay, so we're looking at 12. So here it is. Here's 12. Okay, there's 12. So here are all the factors that make 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Okay, so I'm going to start kind of going through them and going, okay, so I have 1 times 12. Okay, so 1 times 12 makes 12, right? But if I try to add them, those same two numbers, are they going to add to 7? No. Okay, so these are not the numbers that we need. So let's go to the next number. Okay, so then I just go 2 times 6. Okay, so 2 times 6. All right, so 2 times 6 will multiply to make 12. But what if I try to add those two numbers? Will they make 7? No. Okay. All right, so then we'll go to the next number, 3 times 4. Okay. So will those multiply to 12? Yep. Will those add to 7? Yes, they will. Okay, so we finally found our two numbers. So once you do that, once you find the two numbers, all you're going to do is write the factors. So what do the factors look like? Remember, they always have, there's brackets around them. They always start with an X, and then you write the factor after, okay? So if it was positive, you write positive. If it's negative, it's negative. So what we have, these are our two factors here, okay? So 3 and 4 are the factors. So you're going to write them here. So you're going to go X, and see that's positive 3, so you just go plus 3, X plus 4, like that, okay? And then that's it. You've got it factored. All right, so let's try the next one. Okay, one other step that I want you to look for is, remember the GCF. We've done this before. You always want to look for the greatest common factor. Okay, so there's a 1 here, a 6 here, an 8 here. So see how this one's 1? So there's no common factor here, okay? So like the only thing that can divide out is a 1. They all don't have a y, so we don't have to do that step, but I want you to check it anyway. All right, the next step that I want you to do is, okay, so now we're thinking about what adds to this one, what multiplies to this one. Okay, so let's set up that table. Okay, so we have to add to the middle one, which is 6, and we have to multiply to the 8. Okay, so again, we're going to go to our factor table down here. And here's 8. Okay, so here are the numbers that multiply to make 8. So let's go back up. All right, so we know that 1 times 8 can make 8, but can it add to make 6? No. Okay, that would add to 9. All right, so then let's try the next two. So you're like, okay, 2 times 4. Okay, 2 times 4, does that make 8? Yes, it does. If I add them, yes, they will add to 6. Okay, so it means there are two conditions. Think of it like you need to think of two numbers. They have to multiply to 8, but they also have to add to 6. Okay, so you have to find the two numbers that will work for both of these conditions. So we did that. So now all we're going to do is we're going to write, the two sets of brackets like this. Okay, so in this case here was x and x. So here it's y that we're using. So we're just going to write y here. Okay, and then the two numbers is positive 2 and positive 4. So we just write plus 2, plus 4, like that. Okay, and then you're done. All right, so on to the next one. Okay, so again, I'm going to check for our GCF. Is there a number I can divide out of 1, 9, and 20? No, okay, it's just a 1. And then the x's, there's no x's that they can all hand over, or divide out, so we're just going to leave it as GCF as 1. All right, so again, this is the one I add, this is the one I multiply. So let's make a little table here. Whoops. So we're going to add to 9, but we have to multiply to 20. Okay, so if you think of the two numbers right away, good job, just go right to it then, okay? But if not, I want you to go to the factors table, look for 20, there's 20. Okay, so these are all the factors that make 20. Okay, and then, so again, you could just kind of go through one by one if you want, or you can kind of look at the factors and go, oh, it's this one, this is the one that will work. Okay, so I'm just going to go 1 times 20. If I add those, does that work? No. Okay, so let's try 2 and 10. 2 times 10 makes 20. 2 plus 10, does that work to make 9? No. All right, so 3 doesn't work. 4 times 5 works for 20. Okay, if I add those, does that work? Yes, that will work. That will make 9. Okay, and just keep in mind as we go through, the sign is important. It has to make positive 9 and positive 20 and stuff like that. Okay. All right, so from here, you're going to go through and, just write in the x plus 4, x plus 5, like that. Okay. And I always get asked every year, what if I wrote it this way? Does it matter? Nope, it's still the same. Okay. So if you decide to write the 5 first and then the 4 after in the other bracket, that's okay. All right, so on to the next one here. So always check for your GCF first. All right, so we have a -1, so we have a positive 1 here, a -1 here, a -12. So as soon as you have a 1 as one of the terms, there's no GCF for the values, just one will work. And they don't all have a letter, so just a 1. Okay, all right, so now let's move to the next step where we have to find the sum, add that one, and we have to multiply to this one. So what are the two numbers that will work here? Okay, so it is important that you pay attention to the sign. So there's no number here, but there is a 1 here, right? So it's like you have to add to -1 for this one, okay? And then you have to multiply to the -12. Okay, so those are the conditions. So again, we're going to go down, look at what multiplies to 12 here. There it is. Okay, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Okay, and then what's different about this one is that you have a -12 now, okay? So if you're thinking about 1 and 12 right now, 1 times 12 doesn't make -12. You need to make one of these negative to make it negative. So here are the possibilities. So you have -1 and 12, or you can leave the 1 positive and make the 12 negative like that, okay? So just just go through here and just be careful with making one of them positive, one of them negative, because we have to add to or multiply to -12, okay? All right, so now we're going to test. So if I add -1 to positive 12, I'm going to get positive 11. So think of it as 12 added to -1 is positive. So like positives come in, negative comes in. Who wins? The positives by 11. Okay. Here's this battle. Okay, so think of it as like positive 1 comes in, tries to battle -12, the negatives will win by 11. Okay, so in both of these cases, they're no's. These will not work because they did not add up to -1. Okay, all right, so let's think of the next two numbers that will multiply to make 12. So 2 and 6 will multiply to make 12, but we need -12. So one has to be negative, the other one has to be positive. Okay. All right. So then you're like, okay, so that's, so if I add these two, what will I get? Oops. Okay. So -2 adds to positive 6. The positives will win by 4. 2 added to -6. The negatives will win by -4. Okay. So both of these are no as well. Okay. So yeah, I'll just go one more here and I'll show you a little trick. Okay, so 3 and 4 also work to make 12, but again, one has to be positive, one has to be negative. Okay, so all of these will work to make -12, but we still haven't found one that will add to make -1. So let's add these ones now. So -3 and positive 4 will make 1. And then we have 3 added to -4 will make -1. All right, so this didn't work. No, but we finally found one that does work. Yes, okay. All right, so from there, that's when we'll put in our answers here. So we need our two brackets. Okay, the letter that we're using this time is M, so we'll write in M. All right, our two factors that we found are +3, so we write +3 and -4 like that. Okay, subtract 4. And so now you're done. So I want to try to teach you a little tip here so it can go a little bit faster. Okay, so if you were looking at these numbers that you were multiplying through, it took a lot of calculations to find the two that we needed, right? So I'm going to give you a tip here. So for like, these two here, okay, so 1 times 12, those two numbers will make 12, right? So what you could do instead is all you have to do is, so like if I write it here, okay, so we have, 1 and 12 will work, right? To make 12, don't worry about the negative right now, but so all I want you to do is when you're doing this part, just think in your head, okay, if I add them or if I subtract them, okay? So even if it bugs you to subtract it that way, you can go, 12 minus 1. Okay, so when you do that, you get an 11, and then this one you get a 13. Okay, so since those two numbers, when you quickly add or subtract them, does not get to 1, don't worry about the negative on the 1, you could say, no, this is definitely not 1, okay? And then the next two, when you thought of these two, same thing. If you quickly add them in your head or subtract them, okay, see how they don't add up to a number of 1? All right, so then again, you just go, okay, get rid of those ones. So instead of listing all the positives and negatives out, just kind of, this is a quick way to check. All right, then we get to 3 and 4. So same thing, quickly in your head, you just go 3 plus 4. Oh yeah, that makes 7. And 4 minus 3 makes 1. Oh, we finally found a number that's close, right? So this is where you're like, okay, this has to be the numbers. So now we just got to figure out, is it positive or negative for the first, for the 3, or is it negative for the 4? Okay, so that's what you need to do here. So here you just kind of go, okay, not that one, not this one, but yes, this one. So then we just got to figure out which sign, and then we figured out, oh, it's those two here. Okay, so it's just like if you prefer to list off all of the different ones because it's just more comfortable, then do that. But if you wanted to find a little bit of a faster way, um, I just kind of list off the two numbers. I quickly add and subtract them, and if I get to the number, even if don't worry about the sign, but if I get to the number that I need, one, then I know like here it didn't, here it didn't, here and here it didn't, but here finally this one it worked, right? This is how I know it's okay. It's 3 and 4 are the ones that have to work. We just have to add the negative into one of them, and then we'll get the answer. Okay, so that's a quicker way of doing it, but again, if you prefer to list them all off, then that works as well. Okay, so on to a couple more. I think if we get through these ones, it should be enough practice that you can start some of the worksheets and then try the checkpoint today. All right, so again, you are going through and you are checking for a greatest common factor. Okay, so just get in the habit. I know right now there's nothing coming out that's significant, but just I want you to check that because again, as we move forward into some other ones the next day, you'll just be in that habit of, oh, I've checked the GCF. I can move on to the next step. Okay. All right. So so here, yeah, again, there's a 1, a 7, and a negative 18. As soon as you have a 1, you know the 1 is the greatest common factor. Any letters? No. Okay. All right, so then we go to the next step, which is we're going to figure out the one that adds to the middle one and multiplies to the last one. Okay, and we're going to pay attention to the sign that they had. Okay, so it was positive 7 and negative 18. All right, so again, going to our factors table, let's look for 18 here. There it is. And so 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Okay, so let's go through step by step. So again, I'm going to write off all the factors, but if you want to use that trick that I was showing you above, where you add and subtract them really quick and see if it becomes 7, you can use that trick as well. Okay. All right. So 1 and 18. So I need a negative 18, so I know one of them has to be negative, one of them has to be positive, or it's the other way around. The 1 is positive, 18 is negative, like that. Okay. And if I try to add them both up, will I get 7? Okay, so no, this would become 17 and this would become negative 17. So these are both no's. Okay, all right, so the next two, 2 and 9, same thing, go through 2, 9. Okay, so make one of them positive, one of them negative. And if you if you add them together, okay, so this one becomes positive 7, this one becomes negative 7. Okay, and we need the one that is positive 7, so this one works. Okay, not this one. All right, so now we just go in, write our factors out. Okay, so we're using the letter X. Remember, we need two sets of brackets here. So we have the yes was this one here, right? This one here. So we have negative 2, subtract 2, and then positive 9 like that. Okay, and again, you can double check your work by just quickly going, okay, if I add these, do I get 7? Yep. If I multiply them, do I get negative 18? Yes. All right, and again, if you were using that trick method, where you see, 1 and 18, can I add them? Can I subtract them to make 7? Nope. Okay, so then you need to check the next two. Can I add or subtract them to make 7? Yes. So we knew these would work, and so you didn't have to keep going and, checking this one, like the 3 times 6 and so forth and so forth. Okay. All right. So yeah. So just again, I'll keep listing off all the factors because I know this is tricky when you're first learning it. So, all right. So again, check for your GCF. Okay, and then analyze. Is there any number I can divide out? Any letter that I can divide out? Okay. So. Nope, just a 1, so now we'll do the product sum. So this is the sum, that's the product. Okay, so we need to add to negative 14, we need to multiply to 49. All right, so again, go to our factor table, look for 49, there it is. 1 times 49, 7 times 7. Okay, so see how we have positive 49 here? So we're just going, okay, 1 times 49. Okay, so you're like, oh, well, let's see here. When I add them, that is not going to make 14. Okay, but again, if we're using that trick method, if I subtract them, will it work? No, that won't work either. Okay, so we'll move on. The next one was 7 times 7. Okay, so 7 times 7 does make 49. But see how when I add them, it doesn't make negative 14? So this is still no, even though it was close, okay? So we have an issue here. So we've thought of all the factors, right? To make positive 49, but they don't add to make negative 14. So I want you to remember that there are actually two other factors, like another set that does actually work here. So remember that negative times negative will make a positive, okay? So these are possible factors as well. So whenever you see that where it's like one's positive here and the other one's negative, it's a trick of you have to add some negatives in. So if the product is positive, just multiply by 2 negatives to make the negative here. So here, if we add them, you'll get negative 14. Okay, and that's the one we want. Okay, all right, so let's add those up. All right, and yeah, and there's your final answer. And some people, they go, oh, there's 2 of them, so I can write it like this where it's more cleaned up. Okay, but I'll accept both. All right, so yeah, just watch out for that. That's the other possibility where you have a positive, so you can make them both negative to get to your negative number that you need. All right, let's try the next one. All right, GCF, is there one that works? Okay, you're just scanning through. No. Okay, so we're gonna add to the middle one, which is negative 1, and we're gonna multiply to the last one, which is negative 20. All right, those are the 2 conditions. Let's see what numbers will work. Okay. All right, so again, go to your factors table here. So you're thinking 20, so where's 20, 20, 20, oops, there it is, okay. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Okay, so again, the conditions are you need a negative 20. Okay, so again, so you have to make one of them negative, one of them positive to get negative 20. Okay, but see when I add them, I won't get the one that I need. Okay, that makes 19. So that's a no. That makes negative 19. That's a no. All right, so let's try 2 and 10. Okay, so again, we'll make one negative, make the other one positive, and vice versa. Okay, can I add those ones to make it a negative 1? Okay, nope, that makes 8, so that's no. Okay, and that makes negative 8, so that's no. All right, so let's keep going. We have 4 and 5 we can try. So again, we'll make one of them negative, one of them positive, vice versa. Okay, so if I add those, okay, so that becomes positive 1. So close, but not what we need. 4 plus negative 5. Okay, the negatives will win. That's negative 1. So this one's a yes. That one was a no. All right, so we found our 2 numbers. So write out our factors here. So positive 4 and the negative 5 is the right combination to multiply to make negative 20, but add to make negative 1. Okay, so again, I'm just going to review that little trick method just to see if we can make things go faster here. So back here when we looked at 1 and 20 to see if that will multiply to negative 20 and add to negative 1. So again, if you wanted to just kind of take the 2 numbers 1 and 20, okay, and then quickly go, okay, if I add them, I get 21. If I subtract them, I get 19. All right, so that is not going to make 1, so these are no. All right, let's try the next two, 2 and 10. So again, don't worry about the signs right now. We're just trying to see if we get in the ballpark, which is 1, okay? So you know that they will multiply to make 20. So, but if I add them, so that'll make 12. If I subtract them, make 8. So again, not giving me a 1. So this is definitely not a number. So that way, like if you could just like think of the two numbers and then quickly just do an add a subtract trick. And if it doesn't get to the number 1 here that you need, you just eliminate those two numbers. All right, so then we get to 4 and 5. Okay, so I'm just saying like then you're not writing out so many numbers and so forth. Okay, all right, 4 and 5. So again, in your head, just go, okay, if I add them, I get 9. All right, that's not going to work. But if I subtract them, I will get 1. All right, so that's how I know, oh, okay. So these have to be the two numbers that I need here. Okay, and then you kind of go through this part here and then make one negative, make one positive, and then determine which is the one that actually works. And we found it was this one here. Okay, all right. So again, just a way to do it more efficiently. Just because I know it's a little bit annoying to write out all the different factors and so forth. Okay. All right. Here's the last one. So we're going through here. Do I see a GCF at all? No, like this is a 1 here, right? So GCF a 1. Do they all have a letter? No, this one doesn't have a letter. So we're good. All right, so we're going to add to the middle one, which is negative 18. And we're going to multiply to the last one, which is negative 63. Okay, so from there, we're trying to think of all the factors. So again, let's go to our factor table here. 63. 63, there it is. So 1 and 63, 3 and 21, 7 and 9, okay? So 1 and 63. So if you wanted to use that trick right now, if I add them or if I subtract them, will I get 18? No. Okay? So, and if so the next one was, I think it was 2, right? No, it was 3. 3 and 21, right? So 3 and 21, if I add them, will I get 18? No, but if I subtract them, I will. Ooh, so this looks like it's the one that you need, okay? All right, anyway, so just go ahead with that. I'm just going to go through the method of finding all the different factors here. Okay, so we'll start with these two first. Okay, so if I add them, it's not going to make my 18. Nope. If I add these two, nope, that's not going to work. Okay, so then let's make one of these negative, one of those positive. Okay, and vice versa. All right, it's negative 3 plus 21. Will that make negative 18? Okay, no, that would make positive 18. Okay, so maybe I'll write that in here. Okay, so that's positive 18. Okay, so we're close. So then, well, what if it's the other way around? Okay, that's the one that makes a negative 18. So yes, this pair is the one that works. This is a no. All right, so go through, write your factors in. Positive 3 and negative 21. Okay, so if I add them, do I get negative 18? Yes. If I multiply them, do I get negative 63? Yes. Okay, so, and then, yeah, and then you don't need to, try to figure out if 9 times 7 works, okay? Like that's the other factor that we're just the possibility, but you don't even have to bother with that because you found the two factors that you need, okay? All right, so please practice a bunch of these on the worksheets before trying the checkpoint. But again, hopefully you feel confident in knowing what to do. Use this factor table that I am going to also provide you as well, just to glance back. But again, if you, don't want to use it, you could just simply just go to your calculator and go, okay, 63 divided by 1. Yes, that's 1 and that'll work. 63 divided by 2. No, that won't work. 63 divided by 3. Yeah, that works with 21. So you can kind of use your calculator as well. But again, if I gave you a test, I would allow you to have this factor table. So just, yeah, use it to your advantage. But then it's about tweaking if you need a negative or positive for the numbers as well. Okay, so go and try some of those.